Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. Jujutsu Kaisen. Unlock the 8 secret arts at the start. Change 51. But the next moment, he dared not make any noises. His whole body was cold sweat constantly, his hands and feet were cold, and his teeth trembled. Only because that blue dagger was like a ghost. Suddenly, it appeared in his throat. The tip of the knife touched his artery lightly. Only in the slightest forward, his blood vessels will be completely cut off and blood will flow horizontally. Mister, I have no intentions. I am here to look for Mister to cooperate, and come here with sincerity. Mister. D forcefully suppressed the fear in his heart, and under the shadow of death, he shouted quickly, for fear that one step later would be desperate on the spot. He had a faint feeling that if he really had any bad thoughts towards the young man in front of him, then the knife would penetrate his throat without hesitation. Right now, Ryuichi's eyes are like a bright moon, as cold as a snowy mountain, without any human emotions. In this pair of eyes, D only felt that his whole body was naked, from body to soul, everything about him was seen through, without any privacy. Cooperate. Ryuichi reread what D said with interest. Explain your intentions, remember not to talk nonsense. This knife of mine actually has its own consciousness. If you have a nonsense, then this knife may be inserted into your neck. Ryuichi's smiling appearance fell in D's eyes, as terrifying as the evil spirits of hell. He was wondering why this handsome boy who was obviously like the big boy next door had such a terrifying aura. And the reason why Ryuichi has such an attitude towards this guy, apart from the other party's sneaky wandering at his door, there is another important reason, that is, Ryuichi feels malicious in him. Unprovoked as pure malice. It may be difficult for ordinary people to perceive such vain feelings of malice. But, under the nourishment of 6 immortal thief treasury, Ryuichi's body has far surpassed the scope of human beings. Whether it is muscle strength, senses, or intuition, it has reached a level that is difficult for ordinary people to understand. Simply put, everything about the emotions that Ryuichi was born can be instantly aware of. As long as anyone has thoughts against him, his body will instinctively react to combat. This was a surprise that came after the success of 6 immortal thief treasury. The fairy is one step faster, the thief is sharp and unparalleled. Immortal thieves can anticipate all crises and cradle all possible threats. Therefore, the moment Ryuichi saw truth, the murderous intent in his heart had awakened again. According to his character, he should have penetrated D's throat directly, and would not listen to the other party's words at all. However, in this guy, Ryuichi instinctively realized that he was not the malicious distributor, but the transmitter. That is to say, the relationship of subordinates who have extremely malicious existence towards Ryuichi will be contaminated. This aroused Ryuichi's interest and allowed him to live for a while. Okay, Mr. Ryuichi, my name is D, from the Human Mutual Aid Association. This time I am looking for a husband to form an alliance. Feel the cold murderous intent in the throat. Where can I dare to write ink, like poor beans, quickly telling my purpose of coming here? Since the Sir comes from the Zenin family, he naturally knows the enmity between the Zenin family and the Gojo family. The Gojo family, the next patriarch, Gojo Satoru is extremely powerful, and he has mastered unlimited techniques and 6 eyes, and his future achievements are almost limitless. We know that Mr. Yi's strength will naturally not be afraid of Gojo Satoru in the future, but as long as we cooperate, we can completely figure out Gojo Satoru in the infancy. The villain is here to discuss this matter with your husband. Our president welcomes your husband at any time. And with the utmost sincerity, as long as Mr. needs, all members of the association will be Mr.'s help. D's speech speed is extremely fast, for fear that a 1-second slow will cause any discomfort to Ryuichi, and he will say goodbye to this beautiful world. Ryuichi, who was lying on the sofa, looked at Sheer on the opposite side with a weird face, and Sheer looked at Ryuichi with the same gaze. As his eyes met, the corners of Ryuichi's mouth twitched. Are you sure? A Curse Division's organization is called Human Mutual Aid Association. Sheer also looked uncertain, scratching the back of his head awkwardly, and said brightly. Yes, maybe. It doesn't matter, but this guy, just now, seems to be saying that he wants us to get rid of Gojo for the Zenin family. Cher's mouth couldn't help but curl up. It seems so. Ha 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 ha. Cher broke out with a burst of earth-shattering laughter. Ryuiki also leaned his body on the sofa, with the corners of his mouth slightly upward, drawing a slightly mocking smile. Kneeling on the ground did not understand why the two of them laughed. It's not to blame him, although Shire was swept out by Zenon's house, but for the lowest level guy in the world like D, he was not qualified to get information about him. So he didn't even figure out why Shire became a bounty hunter. She has always regarded Shire as a family elder brother who came out to experience life. After all, a guy with such strength, who would have thought that he would be swept out because he had no curse power? With Shire's combat power against the sky alone, even the first-level Jujutsu division did not know how many he had killed. Two gentlemen. Now is not the time to laugh. Once Gojo Satoru is allowed to grow up, in the future, the Zenon family will surely be destroyed in his hands. At that time, the Zenon family's blood will definitely be cut and wiped out by the other party. The family's thousands of years of honor will be burned. The high-rise building collapses and the reputation is dusted. D seems to be more excited than these two Zenon family members. The courage who didn't know where it came from actually yelled loudly, and that voice actually suppressed Cher's laughter. A black mist was constantly surging up and down his whole body. Although it passed away in a flash, it couldn't escape Ryuiki's eyes. When Shire heard D's roar, the smile on his face was slightly reduced. He looked at the truth at his feet seriously, scratched his cheek with his fingers, his eyes jokingly. What does it have to do with me? No matter what the Zenon's house is, whether it is still brilliant or the tall building collapses, everything has nothing to do with me. Ryuiki, what did you say? Zenon's house is shit, Ryuiki replied lightly. The eyes are indeed still looking at the truth, as if to see through, what is the black mist that flashed just now? Yes, Zenon's house is shit. For that ancient family, Ryuiki did not have the slightest feeling for him. From the time he had memory, his own food and clothing costs were obtained through labor. After being checked out of the curse power, he even had his own room. Be deprived of. As a traverser, Ryuiki can't say how resentful the Zenon family's behavior is. He who has matured his mind and understands that there is no use value, for the big family, he is a stranger just like outsiders. What kind of blood relatives, what family inheritance, everything is far in front of strength. So he doesn't resent, but he doesn't have any feelings for Zenon's family. No, Zhang Jin, one night, he also had a bit of nostalgia for that cold family because of the existence of a person. But, after all, he was obliterated by the ruthless honor. Therefore, if you don't shoot at Zenon's family, it's already Ryuiki's greatest forbearance. Seeing the truth of the two people's posture, he couldn't help swallowing and spitting. He didn't understand what kind of person it was that would contempt his family so much. Don't persuade others to be kind to others without suffering. Although D didn't talk too much, he was still very worried. He came with the president's expectations. If he went back in such a desperate way, then he might as well die. Think of the truth here. He looked firmly at Ryuiki with a frivolous face. Even he himself didn't notice, an extremely filthy black mist appeared in his eyes. Mr. Ryuiki, Gojo Satoru is too dangerous for all humans. The purpose of our organization is to help people all over the world help each other. We have been working hard for it, but the appearance of the monster Gojo Satoru broke all balance. His strength is stronger than the balance of this era. His attitude can even determine the entire Jujutsu world in the future. No. It's the direction of the entire world. This is too dangerous for the world. It is too unfair for the people of the world. Putting everything on the good and evil of one person is simply unacceptable. D's expression was excited, his face flushed, and his hands danced as he spoke, like a brainwashed madman, like a mad believer, spreading his faith. Our president has seen the long-term future. Mr. Ryuiki, you are the only person in this world who can stop Gojo. For the future of mankind, please help us. Please help us. After all, completely ignoring his throat, the god of death who could take his life at any time, put his hands on the ground respectfully. Head down and knocked down heavily. Boom, boom, boom. The intensity was so strong that Ryuiki could feel the floor under his feet vibrating. Sheer listened to D's words and glanced at Ryuiki thoughtfully, and then at D. On the other hand, Ryuiki smashed his mouth, ignoring the truth of kneeling on the ground and knocking his head down over and over again. After a long while, he said quietly, "So it's so interesting. Your name is D, right?" Hearing Ryuiki's words, D stopped his movements and raised his head again. His forehead was already dripping with blood, but there were a few extremely subtle forces repairing his wounds. "Yes, sir. You said that I am the only one who can stop Gojo Satoru. Have you ever thought that in the future, I will also be the one who will measure the whole world on the line of good and evil? Why do you think that someone can restrain me?" This. Apparently Ryuiki's words stopped asking the truth. The dragon-slaying warrior eventually became the evil dragon. He didn't understand this truth. Ryuiki is right. Since Ryuiki is the only monster that can match Gojo, who can control Ryuiki after we work together to eradicate Gojo? When thinking about this question, his head seemed to explode and began to suffer. He couldn't bear it, hugged his head, fell to the ground, twisted his body frantically, and uttered waves of mourning. "Ah, my head, my head." Ryuiki looked at the painful figure on the ground. Finally confirmed his judgment. Poor fellow. Ryuiki shook his head slightly, as if a little pity, and a little contemptuous. "Ah, my head. My lord. My lord. Why punish me? Why?" Di Sheng roared hoarsely, the blue veins on his head violently, in the case of extreme congestion, like disgusting centipedes, wriggling frantically. "This guy is so noisy. Do you want?" Seeing the painful truth rolling on the ground, Sheer didn't show the slightest movement in his eyes, but with a bit of cold-killing intent. It seems that the man on the ground screamed, making him feel very bad. A slender machete appeared in his hand, showing murderous intent. Pity, sympathy, or compassion seems to have never appeared in this unruly man. Even if it is a living person, groaning like a pig or dog in front of him, he is still indifferent, only feeling that the other party is a little noisy. He was a dead man. Ryuiki made an understatement, but it exploded like thunder in D's ears, and the body that had been twisting constantly because of the pain suddenly stopped struggling. As if the pause button was pressed, lying motionless on the ground. In Ryuiki's eyes, a filthy foul air quickly rose up all over his body, constantly eroding D's body. When Shire saw this, his eyes shrank suddenly, and he instantly turned over and jumped up from the sofa, with a long knife in his hand flying, like countless wind flowers and snowy moons. In the blade light, murderous intent overflowed. Shire held a sharp blade and went straight to D's head to kill. In fact, in Sheer's eyes, D's body has not changed at all. The perfect heavenly restriction made Sheer's body stand at the top of the world almost from birth, but the relative price was his body can't produce the slightest curse power. The source of mantra power is human negative emotions, and jujutsu masters are controlling their own negative emotions and obtaining mantra power from them. Ordinary people can't extract mantra power, but they will produce negative emotions to breed mantra power. This is also the most part the reason for the birth of cursed spirit. But Sheer is different. He is completely complete and will not produce the slightest curse power. In other words, even if he produces negative emotions, he will not produce curse power, or there is another possibility, that is, the role of heavenly restriction on Sheer is to reverse the curse power generated by that negative emotion and use it all nourish his body. In this world, or in this era, if there is no such an anomaly as Ryuiki, then no one's body can reach the level of horror like Sheer's. He really can't see the curse power and cursed spirit, but his perfect body can make him feel everything. So at the moment that weird curse power appeared, his body instinctively sensed a slight threat. "It's so noisy," Shire roared, brandishing the long knife in his hand, and slashing at D's head. But the imaginary scene of blood drifting with the pestle did not appear. In the midair, an invisible force blocked the long sword like a mountain. Shu-Er's fatal blow was stopped. Whoosh! She lightly tapped her feet, and her whole body power burst out instantly. The figure moved quickly in the room, with a long knife in his hand hanging upside down, with infinite murderousness. His eyes were tightly fixed, and the corners of his mouth were full of arrogant smiles. "It looks like it's going to be fun. How did you find me?" Dee ignored the murderous Sheer, but looked at Ryuiki on the sofa watching a play. At this time, his whole body was wrapped in black mist, and there were no white eyes in his eyes, but strange blackness. Occupied deeply. Like an abyss, with the power of temptation, people who stared at him couldn't help but want to sink into it. Set an inexplicable point as the lead, and it will explode when touched. This method is really clumsy. Base. Ryuiki's voice did not fall. Sheer on the side had been shot out like a bullet, and the long knife had appeared in Dee's throat. A tyrannical force burst out from the blade. It exploded in Dee's throat. This time there was indeed no force that could resist the attack of Cher. Flop. The white knife was in, but the red knife was not out. This knife directly severed Dee's throat. But Cher's expression was still not at all relaxed, with deep vigilance in his eyes, and the moment he penetrated the opponent's body, his figure turned again, stepped back a few steps, and returned to Ryuiki's side. What is this thing? Cher's knife was not unbelievable, it almost cut Dee's neck completely. If it weren't for the neck, there were two pieces of fleshy skin connected, I'm afraid the other party's head had completely fallen to the ground. S received this kind of mortal attack, but he didn't seem to feel it all, and there was no blood splashing in his throat, and he still stood in place. With those weird black eyes, I looked at Ryuiki closely. It's the first time I have seen cursed spirit who can communicate with people normally. The blue dagger floated quietly into Ryuiki's hand. It dances like a butterfly in Ryuiki's hands. Beautiful but murderous. The atmosphere in the room became extremely depressing. A man whose neck was severed but still talking. A flying dagger in his hand seems to be a young man who is not interested in anything. A long knife in his hand, like a gambler, an unruly killer. The three people painted a strange scene with 5 strokes together. How did you discover me? The voice of T has become somewhat neutral, making it difficult to distinguish between men and women, but what is certain is that it is definitely not his original voice. He seemed to have some doubts as to why Ryuiki could see through his identity. This sentence does not produce curse power by the body, but it can still use jujutsu. Isn't this suspicious? 6 Immortal Thief Treasury gave Ryuiki a near-perfect mastery of the power of the spell. Anyone who looked at him could almost see the flow of jujutsu. But only when this truth appears. Ryuiki couldn't find jujutsu in his body. In other words, whether it is facing the threat of death or the fear of unknown, there is no fluctuation in his heart. Negative emotions produce curse power, except for the anomaly of Ryuiki, this is the iron law of this world. An absolute rule that no one can violate. So Ryuiki suddenly became suspicious. You are right, human, you are very intelligent, think about it, and cooperate with me. D thought for a while, nodded deeply, and invited Ryuiki again. Ha ha ha. Thank you for your compliment, I am very smart, but you are stupid. Ryuiki stood up from the sofa sarcastically. Finger moves slightly. Behind him, a horrible curse power condensed crazily. A woman in white clothes, black hair and wet body appeared behind him out of thin air. With astonishing tyranny, the pair of spiteful eyes hidden behind the long hair, looked closely at the truth. It seems that as long as Ryuiki gives an order, she will rush forward without hesitation and tear the man to pieces. Temple. You have recovered. Seeing the emergence of this special class, Dai was very surprised. It seemed that the appearance of the temptress made him very surprised. You should be still sleeping. It's you who made trouble. I don't know why, it seems that the appearance of the woman on that day has made the soul attached to the body become extremely angry. There were even a few trills in the voice. And Ryuiki looked at his eyes, and his interest became more intense. Knowing temptress, having enough wisdom, and even having emotions, how long has this guy lived? Ryuiki glanced at her side. Cher, who was ready to take a shot at any time, waved her hand to signal the other party to calm down. At any rate, you are also an old guy. Don't be so excited, do you know that our human world has something to say? The originally angry cursed spirit was interrupted by Ryuiki, and there was a visibly stunned face on his face. What are you talking about? No one came empty-handed. I accepted your gift. Base. Bang. Before the words were over, Ryuiki's figure already appeared in front of Dai. In his hand, a black vortex formed by Yongye was constantly twisting and deforming. Click. Snapped. This palm directly grabbed the somewhat shaky neck of Dai, and pulled it hard, only to hear a pounce, and a big head was directly taken off by Ryuiki and held it in his hand. The black vortex exploded with powerful power. Yongye appeared like a ghost, and in a flash, swallowed that head. Cut. It really doesn't work. Ryuiki disappointedly dropped the head in his hand. Sure enough, the other party was not coming from the body, and what remained in the body was just a few filths. However, although he did not succeed in cursing the spirit, Ryuiki is not without gain. A meaningful smile appeared unconsciously at the corner of his mouth. A cursed spirit hidden in the human world. What organization has been formed, and the goal is to get rid of Gojo. It is simply too fun. But this is not important. The most important thing is that the other party actually hit his mind. The next period of time will not be boring. Shire, ready to move. After half a month. Tokyo, poor street. This is the most barren place in Tokyo, where countless poor people gather for warmth. It is a garbage dump for the rich and an amusement park for the poor. Garbage can be seen everywhere on the floor, and the rotten sour smell is the only smell here. There are buzzing flies everywhere here, boring mice. And just in this extremely dirty street. A dilapidated mansion is indeed extremely clean and tidy. In this filthy and dirty street, it seems so out of place and unique. Ha ha ha. Dad, push it higher, higher. The little girl's crisp voice rang happily in the courtyard. Like a happy lark, happily enjoying the long-lost quiet time with his father. Okay, higher, higher. The girl's father followed his daughter's wishes and pushed the swing high. Hearing her daughter's laughter, there was an unstoppable smile around her eyes. But the next moment, his smile quickly converged, and a filthy black mist quickly emerged from the depths of his eyes. The action of pushing the swing has also slowed down. What's the matter, Dad? The little girl pursed her mouth and looked at her father with dissatisfaction. She hadn't enjoyed her fun yet. The girl Schwelingling's big eyes had flickered with tears. Seems to be ready to cry at any time. Seeing his daughter look like this, the black mist in his eyes quickly disappeared. Pushing the swing again hurriedly, pushing her daughter high into the air, the girl's cheerful laughter sounded again in the yard. A few crows suddenly landed on the fence of the courtyard. They obviously hated the crows during the day so much that they violated their instinct and appeared under the scorching sun. The dark bird's eyes looked closely at the little girl on the swing and the man in the courtyard, like a loyal guard. Quack quack, quack quack. The crow's cry, with an unpleasant hoarseness, seemed to play an unknown tragic song. The little girl was brought back to the room by her mother. Only the man was left sitting in the courtyard. A crow quietly landed on the man's shoulder. In the courtyard, the man looked at the crow on his shoulder, as if looking at himself through the crow's eyes. Said quietly after a long while. Zenin Ryuiki, you should die too. Quack quack, quack quack. The overwhelming crows hovered in the air, and they even covered the dazzling sun. The black feathers fell gently, like a heavy rain of death. Dot 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 dot. Dear viewers, an unprecedented tragedy happened yesterday. Meteor Street is suspected of a virus outbreak. Only a pair of mother and daughter survived the entire street. All the remaining residents, a total of 4,500 people, died. The police are still investigating the specific reasons. Let us mourn the death of 4,500 compatriots on this unfortunate day. All the news is reported exclusively by the Tokyo Daily News. Shier drank all the beer in his hand, picked up the remote control, and directly turned off the TV. 4,500 people. It seems that Tokyo is about to break out a new round of curse. In the overcrowded city of Tokyo, such a horrible act is bound to trigger an explosion of a large number of negative emotions. The cursed spirit bred from it is even more uncommon. Cursed spirit can't be killed, as long as there are humans. Ryuiki arranged his clothes and said casually. As long as there are humans in this world, then cursed spirit will not be killed. Even if it is wiped out for a while, it will be revived in the future. Hey, there are so many idiots. Even urban ghost stories can evolve into cursed spirit. These guys are so stupid that they are hopelessly stupid. Cher grouped the empty wine bottles into a ball and dropped a three-pointer directly. Exhausted in the trash basket at the door. As everyone knows, this sentence seems to wake up Ryuiki. Yeah, weird story. How did I forget? During this time, Ryuiki has mastered a lot of low-level cursed spirits through dispatch of detained spirits, and of course they are all cannon fodder level things. In order to find a high-level cursed spirit, Ryuiki had to move everything from Sugazawa to Tokyo. But for more than 10 days, I didn't expect that there would be less business in Tokyo. Jujutsu Association, aristocratic family, Jujutsu College, all forces are like dumplings, performing their tasks frantically. The number of super cursed spirits is very scarce, and the powerful and wise are hibernating in the dark. People who were just born with no brains did not wait for themselves to find out, they were eliminated by humans. My own intelligence is still far from being developed by other organizations. It's slow and slow. After being in Tokyo for so long, I can only collect a bunch of small people. Although his own house of everything was established without any hindrance. But Ryuiki always feels that he has been targeted. However, Shiur's words just reminded him. If there is no special grade, then I will make special grade. Mankind's fear of illusion is the deepest. Whether it is the eight-headed snake or the tempura that has been used for itself, it was born because of the imaginary fear of mankind. So why can't you create a strange story and create a super imaginary cursed spirit? Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.